If your team depends on one person to make things make sense, it looks like experience. It looks like a strong employee. But what you actually have is dependency.
Most teams have that person, the employee everyone goes to when something does not make sense. They know how things actually are handled. They know which version of the process people really follow. They know what each manager expects, even when those expectations are not the same. And when something starts to drift, they're the one that quietly stabilizes it. At first, that just looks like experience. Leaders often feel we have strong people. And most businesses stop the analysis right there. They see a reliable employee, they see experience, they see someone they can trust. So the conclusion becomes we're in a good place. And nobody really asks what the operation is relying on to stay that way. But if you look a little bit closer, something more specific starts showing up. The operation is not just being supported by that employee, parts of the operation are actually being held by them. And that is where the story changes. That raises a more important question. How did that happen? Most of the time, it doesn't start as a system problem. It starts as a people solution. Something is unclear, so someone explains it. Something is inconsistent, so someone corrects it. Something is missing, so someone fills in the gap. Those small adjustments start to add up, though. This is the part most businesses do not name clearly. This is what people often refer to as tribal knowledge. It's not formal. The knowledge lives inside people and gets passed around informally. People stop going back to the process for answers and they start going to each other instead. Little by little, the knowledge that used to live in the process starts living inside specific people. It doesn't happen all at once. You start seeing patterns instead. The same questions keep getting routed to the same people. New employees learn faster from coworkers than from any formal training process. Answers depend on who you ask. And the real way of doing things starts getting passed around informally. Nothing is written down in a way that people can actually use. So the work keeps moving, but the knowledge is no longer shared evenly. In the moment, none of this feels like a problem because nothing appears to be broken. Nothing is forcing the system to adjust. Everything still looks like it's working the way it's supposed to work. So nobody ever has a fix for the process. The work just gets passed to whoever knows it, and those people end up carrying the clarity. Then something important changes. Clarity isn't in the process anymore, it's now coming from specific employees. When clarity lives inside people instead of being something everyone can go back to, the operation starts behaving differently in small, repeated ways. Those small shifts are what most leaders never fully see. And eventually, something else starts to shift. Once people know where the real answer lives, their behavior starts to adjust. They stop looking for clarity in the process. They start looking for the person who knows. Just ask Melissa. She knows how we actually do that. Or check with John. He'll know which version to follow. Questions that should have been answered by the process get routed to people. Decisions that should have been straightforward get double checked with someone experienced. And certain employees start getting interrupted more than others because they're reliable, because they explain things clearly, because it feels safe to ask them. Over time, the pattern becomes visible. Some employees start working differently than everyone else. They're doing their job and they're supporting everyone else's ability to do theirs as well. That is when dependency starts to form because the operation has quietly trained people where to go for clarity. And once people learn that, they'll keep using it because it works and because it feels safer than guessing. And at a glance, nothing raises concern. No one is flagging issues. No one is escalating confusion. Everything looks like it's holding together. So leadership assumes the operation is holding. But underneath the surface, something more fragile is taking shape. Pressure is not spreading evenly across the team anymore. It's concentrated. So now certain employees start becoming the place where things get resolved because that is where the operation knows that it holds. And the more that happens, the harder it becomes to see where the actual gaps are. And that starts to change what their job actually feels like. They're not just doing their role anymore. They're keeping other people's work from breaking. They're carrying the clarity that the process should be providing. They're monitoring what might go wrong before it does. That's not visible on a job description, but it is very real inside the operation. And the risk is not just overwork, it's not just the workload, it is dependency. Because now the operation does not just rely on good employees, it relies on specific employees being present, available, and consistent. Remove them or overload them, and the gaps start to show up very quickly. It's not that the other employees aren't trying, though. They were just never given the same amount of clarity. And that is when businesses realize something that they did not see earlier. What looked like strength was actually compensation. Mature operations start looking at this differently. They do not just look at performance, they look at how clarity is being carried. Because once knowledge starts concentrating inside people, stability becomes conditional. It depends on who's available, who is present, who remembers. And that is not the same as having a stable operation. Mature operations work to remove that dependence. They make it easier for people to find answers without needing a person. They make expectations easier to recognize without interpretation. They make processes easier to follow without translation. And gradually, the work will start to rebalance. Fewer questions will need to be routed through individuals. Fewer decisions will need to be double checked. Fewer employees will carry more than their roles require. The operation starts holding more of the clarity itself. This is where leaders start seeing strong employees differently, not just as high performers, but as signals, because strong employees often reveal where the operation is still immature. If one person keeps becoming the answer to everything, that is not just about their capability. That actually shows that the operation still isn't carrying the load on its own. So the question needs to shift from how do we support this employee to why does the operation keep needing them in this way? That is a different level of leadership awareness. So if you want to see where this exists, start paying attention to patterns. Where do the questions go? Who keeps getting interrupted? Where do answers depend on who you ask? Where do people rely on explanation instead of something that they can go back to? And this one question tends to surface the truth very quickly. If a key employee stepped away for a week, what would slow down? What would stop? What would no one feel confident handling? Those answers usually point directly to where knowledge is concentrated. Operational maturity is not about having strong employees. Most businesses already have that. It's about what the operation depends on to stay stable. Because when stability depends on memory, it becomes harder to maintain under pressure, harder to scale, harder to sustain. Strong employees should make the operation stronger, but they should not be the reason it holds together. And that is the difference between an operation that functions and one that can grow without becoming fragile. Because over time, my friends, better systems do build better workplaces.